I've previously done videos on the best footballer whose surnames start with each letter of the alphabet and the best football clubs founded every year from 1862 to 2019. Both were challenging but fun to make, and both got a pretty good response, so when a subscriber suggested that I make a video on the best football club whose name starts with each letter of the alphabet, it was a bit of a no-brainer. Just so we're absolutely clear, we're talking about the first letter of the club's name. This will almost always be the club's full name, with the exception of clubs who are universally known by and only refer to themselves as a different, possibly shorter name. Crucially, the one exception to that is that I won't be including initialised prefixes, such as FC, AFC, CSKA, or VFL, so in those cases, it would be the first letter of the next word. For example, SV Werder Bremen would come under W rather than S. Conversely, however, in the case of non-initialised prefixes such as Real, Olympique, or Athletic, the first letter of the prefix will still be considered. This is simply because counting initialised prefixes made the list a bit daft. The clubs picked are based purely on current credentials. It's not the biggest or the most successful club historically whose name starts with each letter, but rather, if you put the top 20 clubs whose name started with that letter in a 38-game league, who do I think would come out on top right now? I hope that's clear enough. Right, here are my views on the best football club whose name starts with each letter of the alphabet. A. Atletico Madrid. There are a few huge clubs historically whose name starts with an A, such as Ajax, Arsenal, and Athletic Bilbao. Put them and the likes of Anderlecht and Atalanta in one big league though, in 2019, and I think Atletico Madrid are coming out on top. Atletico's full official name is in fact Club Atletico de Madrid, but as mentioned in the intro, no one, including Atletico themselves, ever calls them that, so they are still eligible for A. Atletico have finished in La Liga's top 3 for 7 consecutive seasons, winning 1 La Liga title, 2 Europa League titles, and reaching 2 Champions League finals under Diego Simeone. B. Barcelona. Our criteria makes B one of the most competitive letters in this list, with the likes of Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and Borussia Dortmund all competing for top spot. All three are European superpowers, particularly the first two, but I find it difficult to overlook Barcelona. The Catalan Giants have dominated Spanish football over the last decade, winning 7 of the last 10 La Liga titles, a record which is still criticised since the club has only, yes, only, won 3 Champions League titles in that time. C. Chelsea. Historically, there are some very big clubs whose names start with a C, but based on talents right now, it has to be Chelsea. When Gus Mears founded Chelsea FC in 1905, names like Kensington FC, Stamford Bridge FC, and London FC had been considered, since there was already a team named Fulham in the borough that Stamford Bridge was located in. Chelsea have enjoyed enormous success over the last 15 years, but they're currently undergoing a transitional phase with lots of talented young players, a young manager, and club legend in charge of the club, and with a transfer ban restricting their ability to bring new players in. D. DYNAMO Kyiv. The most successful club in Ukraine, DYNAMO Kyiv have won 15 Ukrainian Premier League titles, although they have played second fiddle to their rival Shakhtar Donetsk over these last few seasons. Dynamo have an eclectic squad made up of Ukrainian, Croatian, Peruvian, and Polish internationals, and they have played European football every season since 1989. E. Everton. It's a tight call between Everton and Eintracht Frankfurt for E, although it would have been an even tighter one last season when the Germans still had Luka Jovic and Sebastian Haller in their side. I think Everton have a better team than Eintracht at the time of recording, although they've been a bit of a mixed bag at the start of this season. Marco Silva's men have some real talent at their disposal, and I'd still probably make them my favourites to finish 7th this season, but they've only managed to win 2, lose 2, and draw 1 of the 5 games so far this season. F. Flamengo. With all the FCs ruled out, F became one of the most closely fought letters in this video, in fact, the most closely fought I would say. Strong competition comes from the likes of Fiorentina, Feyenoord, and Fenerbahce, and supporters of all three could make strong cases for their sides. I'm going to leave Europe for the first time in this video and instead opt for Brazilian champions-elect Flamengo. The Rio-based outfit have some real talent with the likes of Brazilian international Diego Alves, Inter Milan loanee Gabriel Barbosa, and former Bundesliga star Diego in their ranks. Flamengo finished second in Brazil's Campeonato Brasileiro last season, and they topped the division this season at the time of recording. G. Galatasaray. Europe and South America clash once again for the letter G, where it is incredibly difficult to predict who would come out on top over a full league season between Galatasaray and Gremio. Gremio have 3 or 4 outstanding individuals such as Everton, Jeromel and Luan, but Galatasaray are the reigning Turkish champions and they did some good business over the summer. It's a tight call, but from 1 to 11 I think Galatasaray just have a little bit more about them, so they're my choice. H. Hoffenheim. There aren't a plethora of outstanding teams whose names start with the letter H, with Bundesliga duo Hoffenheim and Hertha Berlin probably the picks of the bunch. Hoffenheim are a better team than Hertha, or at least they have been in the first few games of this season, with Hertha currently propping up the rest of the Bundesliga table at the time of this recording. I. Inter Milan. Following almost a decade of not competing for either the Scudetto or the Champions League, Inter Milan appear to be clawing their way back to the top table of Italian and European football now. They played Champions League football for the first time in 7 seasons last season and will be looking to go one better and get out of a horrible looking group this season. The arrivals of Antonio Conte and Romelu Lukaku signalled Inter's ambition this summer, and they currently occupy the top spot in the Serie A table with 3 wins from 3. J. Juventus. Staying in Italy for now, it's a bit of a no-brainer when it comes to J. Juventus are the most successful club in Italian football, and they are still the best now. They have won the last 8 Scudettos, doing so last season with an 11-point cushion over runners-up Napoli. One of the biggest clubs on earth, Juve, have a star-studded squad, and they added Dutch Supremo Matthias de Ligt to their ranks this summer, having brought in 5-time Ballon d'Or winner Cristiano Ronaldo in 2018. K. Krasnodar. K doesn't seem to be the starting letter of choice for most top-class football teams, but FC Krasnodar are more than worthy candidates here. Following a 3rd place finish last season, the Russian outfit sit at the top of the Russian Premier League table at the time of recording, with 6 wins from their opening 9 games. Krasnodar knocked Porto out of Champions League qualification this season, and following their bright start to the league campaign, they'll be optimistic about going deep in this season's Europa League. L. Liverpool. One of the outstanding sides in world football right now, Liverpool are the reigning champions of Europe and were only denied a Premier League title by an outstanding Man City side last season, so there could be few doubts about their inclusion for L. The Reds have just got better and better since the arrival of Jurgen Klopp, who has brought the likes of Virgil van Dijk, Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah to the club, and the finishing touches will be getting their hands on a first league title of the Premier League era. M. Manchester City. Showing what I mean by the criteria laid out in the introduction, clearly historically, Manchester United have enjoyed far greater success than their near neighbours Man City. However, speaking in 2019, even Stevie Wonder can see that Man City are by far the superior side. Through a combination of deep pockets, shrewd acquisitions, and exceptional man management on the part of Pep Guardiola, Man City have become arguably the best team on earth. They've proved their class with their utter dominance of the domestic game over the last couple of seasons, but whilst the Premier League continues to elude Liverpool, it is the Champions League that has become the holy grail for the citizens. N. Napoli. Serie A runners-up for the last 2 seasons now, Napoli finished just 4 points behind Juventus in the 2017-18 season, whilst they were 14 points ahead of 3rd place Roma. Founded in 1926 as AC Napoli, refounded in 1964 as SSC Napoli, and once again in 2004 as Napoli Soccer following financial ruin, Napoli are well and truly back as a force in the Italian game now. They reached the quarterfinals of the Europa League, where they were well beaten by Arsenal last season, but having beaten reigning European champions Liverpool in their opening game of the 2019-20 Champions League, they'll be hoping for greater European success this season. O. Olympique Lyonnais. As a non-initialised prefix, the O in Olympique still counts by our criteria, meaning the clubs we often refer to simply as Lyon or Marseille are the outstanding candidates here. There isn't an awful lot to split the two, and I wouldn't like to put my mortgage on who'd finish higher this season, but if pushed, I'd go for Lyon. They finished 3rd last season, and despite the notable departures of Ferland Mendy, Tanguy Ndombele and Nabil Fekir, they still have real talent at their disposal with the likes of Jason Denayer, Memphis Depay and Moussa Dembele. P. Paris Saint-Germain. An honourable mention should probably go to Porto, but French champions Paris Saint-Germain are the outstanding candidates for the letter P. A little bit like Man City, PSG have invested heavily in recent years. They've become the dominant force in their domestic game, but have struggled to transfer that form over to the latter stage of the Champions League. That could change this season, with the Parisians having put in a really dominant display to beat Real Madrid 3-0 in their opening group game. Q. Caraba. Q is unsurprisingly one of the trickier letters in this video, and my apologies go out to any Queen's Park Rangers fans who thought they might have been in with a shout here. Although they could still fairly be described as one of the lesser sides in this list, Karabakh have absolutely dominated football in Azerbaijan over the last 6 or 7 years. They've come close to qualifying for the Champions League a couple of times, and they've shown themselves not to be total pushovers in the Europa League too. Karabakh have drawn with Monaco, Inter Milan and Atletico Madrid twice in the tournament in recent years, as well as beating the likes of Anderlecht, Young Boys and RB Salzburg. Real Madrid. One of the best and arguably the biggest club in world football, Real Madrid, have suffered a slight wobble since the departure of Cristiano Ronaldo and Zinedine Zidane in 2018. Who would have thought it? Losing one of the greatest footballers of all time can have an adverse effect on your performances on the pitch. Following 3 consecutive Champions League titles, Real were dumped out by Ajax in the round of 16 last season, and they finished 3rd in La Liga in each of the last 2 campaigns. They still have a fantastic squad of players though, and they deservedly come out on top for the letter R. S. Sevilla. There's a fair amount of competition with regards to the letter S, but none finer than Sevilla in my humble opinion. The Andalusian outfit, who are the most successful club in the history of the UEFA Europa League, have had a bit of a wobble these last 2 seasons too. They finished 7th and 6th in La Liga, and they were knocked out by Slavia Prague in the round of 16 of the Europa League last season. They did a remarkable amount of business over the summer though, and the early signs are good for the club. They topped the La Liga table at the time of this recording with 3 wins and 1 draw from their opening 4 games, although their match with Real Madrid this evening, provided I manage to get this video edited and uploaded by Sunday, should give us a better understanding of where they're at right now. T. Tottenham Hotspur. Champions League finalists last season, Tottenham are a really tricky club to assess. On the one hand, they can be criticised for being slight gnarly men, looking like a quality side, but failing to win anything season after season. On the other, one simply has to doff their cap to Maurizio Pochettino for the way in which he has built a squad, developed players, and retained players to make that side so competitive with far more limited resources than his competitors. From Jan Vertonghen and Toby Alderweireld to Christian Eriksen and Harry Kane, the Tottenham squad is packed full of quality, and they're the obvious candidates for the letter T. U. Udinese. Having been a really decent side roared on by the inspired form of Antonio Di Natale on the turn of the decade, Udinese are now firmly a bottom half Serie A side. That means recently promoted Union Berlin weren't too far off making an appearance here, but we'll have to wait and see how they got on in this season's Bundesliga. Udinese finished 12th in Serie A last season, they didn't do much over the summer, and 3 games into the season, they occupy 17th place. V. Valencia. Spanish duo Valencia and Villarreal are the first 2 clubs that come to mind for the letter V, and Valencia are certainly the pick of the 2. In Dani Parejo, Jeffrey Kondogbia and Rodrigo, to name but a few, they have some really good players. Following a 4th place finish last season, Valencia qualified for the Champions League once again this season. They ended up dropping into the Europa League, where they reached the semi-finals last season, but made a bright start to their Champions League campaign, winning away at Chelsea this week. W. Wolves. My initial thought with W was Bundesliga duo Wolfsburg and Werder Bremen, and I still think Wolfsburg in particular are really strong candidates here. Oddly enough nicknamed the Wolves themselves, Wolfsburg finished 6th in the Bundesliga last season, and they'll be up there once again this season. Wolves finished 7th last season in the arguably slightly stronger Premier League, and I think man for man, their starting 11 is better than any other team whose name begins with a W. Wolves' league form has started pretty dreadfully this season, but they'll be hoping to make a bit of a splash in the Europa League. X. Xanthi. X was the most difficult letter in the alphabet for the purposes of this video, and also brings us, arguably the video's worst club. It could have been even worse, since Greek side Xanthi were until recently named Skoda Xanthi, since their owner was a businessman who imported Skoda cars into Greece. Thankfully, they're now back to being just Xanthi, and that means they're eligible here. Having finished 12th last season, Xanthi have made a flying start to the current campaign with 3 wins from 3 games, putting them joint top and level on points with Pauka and Olympiakos. Y. Young Boys. Taking us from Greece to Switzerland, Y is also a fairly unusual starting letter for a football club, but thankfully, we have BSC Young Boys to come to the rescue. Based in the de facto Swiss capital of Bern, Young Boys were founded in 1898, with their name supposedly intended to mimic the Basel-based sports club Old Boys. They won the Swiss Super League at Atalanta last season, finishing a remarkable 20 points ahead of runners-up Basel, as well as recording a famous victory over Juventus in the Champions League. Z. Zenit St Petersburg. The final entrant in this video, what with Z being the last letter in the alphabet and all, Z, was surprisingly easy thanks to Zenit St Petersburg. Zenit are the reigning Russian champions, and having further strengthened their squad with the addition of Malcolm from Barcelona this summer, they sit joint top of the Russian Premier League table 9 games into this season too. Zenit reached the round of 16 in the Europa League last season, but they're in the Champions League this season, where they drew away at Lyon in their opening game. That's it for today's video. Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Since you've got this far and in exchange for eternal good luck and happiness, why not subscribe and turn on notifications for the ever brilliant HITC Sevens. Also, for mobile users, if you click on your screen now there should be some suggestions of other videos YouTube thinks you might like, and I agree with YouTube. If you're watching on desktop, they should appear of their own accord. Thank you all for watching, give us a like if you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a brilliant day.